Hi, this is Clark on Temptress, and this is an angle grinder. An angle grinder is a really amazingly useful tool that a lot of people are either afraid of or just never had experience with. And an angle grinder can meet a requirement for basic emergency safety on a boat that's really important. In this video, we're going to talk about angle grinders and why you should have one. And we're going to do a review of this very inexpensive angle grinder. Many years ago, a good friend of mine and a guy that taught me a lot about machining and fixing stuff, my dad wasn't that kind of guy, insisted that I borrow his angle grinder once to do a project on my boat. And it's like, I was kind of afraid of it. I never used one before. Oh, let me tell you, it's the most useful tool in the world. You've got to be careful with them, but you can't live without them once you get one. So if you've never had an angle grinder, really consider getting one. The guys at DCA sent me an email. I get loads of email. Will you review with this? Will you review that? I usually say no, because I don't see how it would apply to, the sailing life or whatever. Angle grinders are important. And I'm excited about this one because it's very inexpensive, which probably means it's not the best quality. But on a boat, I argue you don't necessarily want the best quality. If you're a guy that's gonna, run a metal shop and you grab this thing all the time and every day it gets like a half hour of use, you want one that'll last. On the boat, you're gonna use it, but months go by, you don't use it. And what will happen to any of them in that marine environment is they're gonna rust. So the corrosion's gonna kill it before it'll wear out. So buy a cheaper one and maybe buy multiples if you want, but over your life, you'll probably have multiples. As things go, I bought a lot of cheap angle grinders. I always get mine at Harbor Freight, and they really do hold up pretty good. But I've only owned ones with cords. This one's battery powered, so this is gonna be new for me. I'm gonna go out eventually and grind some steel and see what it does in wood and get an idea of it, and then I'm gonna come back. But let's start out by looking at what comes in the kit here. This whole kit is about 50 bucks. If you were to buy a DeWalt version of this, it's like 4 or 5 times that. So this is a bargain if it works. Has a nice bag. That's always nice on a boat because you can throw a bag somewhere and it doesn't get tangled up. Oh, also, the corded angle grinder, of course, it's just going to work and work and work. But on a boat, that means we're getting an extension cord out, turning the inverter on, setting up. And very often you set everything up, you're done, and then you have to put it all away again. I think there's a big use on, for anyone, for a battery-powered angle grinder. For most projects, actually. But we'll find out when I grind how long it'll last. Okay, this is the angle grinder. This little guard that, this is not an unboxing video. It all came in a box, and I put it in their bag. So it's your basic angle grinder. When you turn it, you can feel it has very coggy. That means it has a permanent magnet motor, which is great. A little bit more efficient, probably. Lots of stuff came with it. There's a battery charger for recharging the battery, of course. The battery itself, it's 20 volt, and this comes with a 4 amp hour battery. That's bigger than any one that I have for my DeWalt 20 volt, for example. But these guys do eat the power. So we're gonna find out about that too. It looks like it would plug into a DeWalt, like it's a copy of it. And I was really hoping when I saw the picture that I would be able to interchange batteries back and forth. You can't. It's nowhere near the right hookup. It comes with this, which is kind of interesting. It's just a plastic guard that goes over the metal guard that goes all the way around. There's certain things you do where maybe the extra protection would be a good idea, and maybe it would keep the metal filings going away from you. So I'm gonna try that. I've never had that little option. It just clips on there and then you hit some releases. It has a handle, and because you know, anything you can do with two hands is more stable than one hand. And it hooks on either side, and you could use it this way, you know, so you really get a hold of it. In the ad, I looked at the handle and I said, hey, look at that. It's like spring-loaded bellows, and that would make it less vibrant. Nah, it's just solid plastic. They just did that to convince people to buy stuff. But that doesn't make it bad. You need a handle, and it's a perfectly good handle. I'm going to take the handle off to make it easier. It comes with some discs. You're going to want more discs. It comes with 3 types, 2 of each. This is a grinding disc. This is something that you would put on and grind into the work this way. This is used a lot. I mean, they call it an angle grinder, right? So these are great. These last a fair amount of time. So you need some, but you don't need a lot. 2 of those, are they the same grit? You can get these in different grit. You know, it'll make a smoother grind if it's a fine grit, but it'll be more aggressive in its cutting if it's a coarse grit. It has 2 of these. These you need a bunch of. These you will break. This is a cutoff wheel. Don't ever use one like a grinder. Don't push this way. You'll break it, and of course it's spinning really fast, so it goes flying. Guards are something that you have to make your own decision, because you can take the guard off. Sometimes they do, but never have the guard off with this guy. When this guy breaks, it flies all over the place with lots of energy. And you always want to have safety gear, eye protection in particular with this. Not even a question, because these will explode. How you use them is you go through something. You cut it like it's a circular saw. It's like a circular saw for metal. Between these 2, you can go through metal really fast. And one thing you're going to find you use them for a lot on the boat is you're going to have fasteners that get corroded or rounded over and they won't come off. And you've probably seen the meme that's kind of funny where you have a little 1/4-inch socket, please come off, and then a 1/2-inch socket. You know, I want you off, and a big breaker bar. I am serious. And then an acetylene torch. It can't be tight if it's liquid. Well, the acetylene torch is not practical on the boat, but this is. And you can cut the nut either off or mostly off, and then you can break up the parts of it, like even with a hammer and a chisel or something. So you can get a bolt off if you own one of these. Finally, these. This is sandpaper that's like little flaps. And it was a long time before I started using these. They're so much better than just the sanding disc. They last and last and last. I use it mostly for wood and fiberglass. If you look at my videos on how to build a wind generator, I actually carve the blade. And most of the actual shaping of the blade is done with one of these flap discs and an angle grinder. I think in that video I use a larger. That's worth talking about too. This is either called a 4.5 or a 5-inch angle grinder. These discs are 4.5 inches. This is the most common size. You should definitely start with one of these, and they work really well for everything. But if you really want to, have the monster version of it to remove more material faster, they make 6-inch and 9-inch angle grinders. And these are just monsters. But start with a 4.5 because it'll really meet all your needs, and it'll fit in a smaller space and get into smaller spaces to do the job. I don't have with me, but I'll show pictures. The other really useful tool is a wire brush, a stainless steel wire brush. And they're either cap or they sply out this way. Nothing removes rust and paint from metal better and faster than an angle grinder and a wire brush. Just whoop, it just evaporates. But the wire brush doesn't harm the metal. If anything, it polishes it. So you can get right back at it. You don't have a messed up surface. You'll find a lot of uses for that on a boat. You can sort of use it carefully on fiberglass when you need to, but it'll dig into the glass and actually shape it, much like the sanding disc will. There are loads of other things going on here. There's something that kind of sort of looks like this with a chainsaw blade around the outside. Honestly, I've always been too afraid to have one of those. Well, what else is in the bag? Well, one last thing, the wrench. So I'm going to put this together with a grinding wheel just so I can show you how they go together. It's no big deal. You whip off the little nut. There's another kind of a spacer underneath it that has to go in. Both the nut and the spacer have a ridge on it. Some discs require the ridge, some don't, and you could just flip these over and then you get the smooth side. But this type centers on that ridge, and then you put the nut in, which also centers on the ridge, and then you lock it down. And how you lock it down is you hold this little button in and you turn it until you feel it, the button go down, and that's a pin that holds this side. And then it comes with this pin wrench, and you just tighten it down. You have to tighten it down, otherwise when you're grinding, the wheel could just go flying. But don't tighten it too much, just enough, just a little bit. Okay, that thing now is ready to go to town, but of course it won't work. Always, always take the battery out when you're working with your fingers anywhere near the business end. Usually on a real one, you unplug it from the wall. Well, you can't unplug this from the wall. There we go. I don't have glasses on, but I'm gonna start it away from my eyes just in case it pops. There we go. This is a grinding wheel, brand new big. It is pretty safe to start up. The switch is nice. I'm gonna take the battery out for showing the switch. Lots of different kinds of switches they use. Some of them you have to hold them down all the time, and sure, if you think that's safer and that's what you want, go for it. I hate those. I want to be able to lock the darn thing on. You have to push down on the switch and then slide it forward, and it would be running now if it had a battery. But any little tap to the switch and it goes off again. The only switch I like better than that is they call it a rat tail, and you kind of grab it this way. It's a great big long switch. I think they went out of fashion. I think they went out of fashion because if you toss that down, it's likely to start itself. Where this one, you kind of, I managed because I bumped it just right, but it would take some doing to drop that and have it turn on. I guess that's the overview of it. Looking at it, and I had run it earlier, I like this little feature. It sucks air through itself to cool, blows the air out in this area, but it sucks the air in here, and they put like a little screen on it. And I think that would go a long way to keep bad stuff from going in. Because this thing makes dust and metal chips and all kinds of stuff, and you know, they're gonna get pulled into the tool. So good on them for that. I guess that's about it. I'm gonna now go outside and play with it a little bit, and then we'll come back and talk about how it worked. Well, let's go at it. Try to do all this on one battery charge. Should be fine. I got the grinding disc in now. This is just a hunk of something I welded up, and I don't remember why. This all came out of my scrap bin. So, first thing, this is stainless steel. It's about the same diameter, and in fact, I think it is just plain stanchion material. So this is like what holds your lifelines up, to give you an idea. I've got a really rough cut on it now. I'm going to grind it off and see if I can make it smoother. Also, when you're grinding, the metal's going to get really hot, so be careful. You could hold it, but it gets warm. Just stop, let it cool. But whatever you do, don't like grab it by the business end, because you'll know the difference. Okay, here we go. Everything I'd want an angle grinder to be. Had plenty of power. I pushed on it harder than you really should. Couldn't slow it down any. Happy with it. The cut, really, anything that spins. But it's got to spin pretty fast, and it cut like I'd expect. You probably saw the sparks. Did its deal. Let's switch to the cutoff, and I'm going to cut a hunk off. Okay, I want to rotate the guard so that I'm protected. In fact, just for the heck of it, I didn't bring the plastic guard with me. I'm going to avoid it. It'll either work or it won't. I mean, I've never had one before, and I've lived my life just fine. Okay, so we're going to cut it off now. Again, put it away from you, because if that's shattered, it's probably going to do it when you first start or when you're cutting. Also, when you're cutting with these, go real straight. It's when you go halfway through and then you twist it that you break off the tool. And then when the blade breaks, of course, like I said, it's very eventful. Works better with a battery. Fast to cut as I've ever done. No worries there. One little advice also on cutoff wheels: buy a lot of them. They wear down quite quickly, and what'll happen sometimes when you have to make a deep cut like this, they're not long enough. That's one of the reasons to get a bigger angle grinder, of course. But you know, you start out with a 4.5, and then you get halfway through the work, now you have a 4, right? So you can only cut like an inch. So if you're gonna do a big cut and you're running out of cutoff wheels, start with your old one, cut most of the way, and then put your new one on to finish the cut. Okay, I'm gonna go to the flap disc now. The flap disc can be used on metal as well. Let me break that off. Hot, hot, hot. Okay. Like if I wanted this more polished, and I did, the grinding won't really polish it, I can use the flap disc to do that. You probably can't see in the video that much, but that's really nicely done. Beautiful. There's a little grit to it. Here's a piece of teak. This came off a cruise ship with teak decks, and they were throwing it away. I couldn't let it be thrown. And I've used it. Like this end of it has the big bolt hole, so I'm going to sacrifice this. But I've made so many things out of teak, out of this great huge chunk of the other end of it. I had about 20 of them. I'm going to, for this one, just use the handle because, like, why not? I hope you can see how easy that was. It's like sculpting. I've got this nice curved surface now. With a flap disc, these things are just sculpting tools. I'm going to do one more thing. I didn't talk about it inside. I'll talk more about it. Somebody months ago sent me these. Not this company. They came from, well, we'll talk about it when we look at the box on the inside. But they're basically rasps that go on. So they're like a cheese grater. Never used one before. Let's see what it does. I imagine it'll remove faster than the sanding disc, but not as nice. So probably I would hit it with this first, get it down to shape, and then use the sanding disc to make it pretty. Certainly wouldn't use this on metal. I have two of them that came in the kit. This one's flat and that one's curved like a dish. I'm going to use the flat one. That's a hot knife through butter. Oh, that just removed so much stock so fast. Gotta say I like that. That's gonna go with me on the boat. All of this will. Well, I'm pretty happy with it. It did the thing. And I'm particularly happy with this little rasp wheel thing. Boy, that went to town. And the blades, the teeth still feel sharp, and there's no like wood gummed up inside it or anything. That's a nice piece of kit. It was sent to me so long ago, it's embarrassing, but it's not worth a video. I wouldn't want to waste your time on one little thing like that. It seems like but I like it. So it's by Graff, Graff. They called it carving discs. Like I said, 2 in the pack. One was curved and one was flat. I don't think they were very expensive. I've forgotten. I'll try to find an Amazon link for you. But, this is a good thing. If you're going to work with wood and fiberglass, this is so much faster. The flap disc does a really nice job, and you can smooth things and shape things. But it does take a while to remove the wood. And this thing was like a knife through butter. Pretty cool. Now, let's talk about why you need this. I've been talking about why you would want this. Why you can use this as a project tool. Boat going out into the ocean can get in situations that you need to deal with right now. One of those, for example, is your mast came down. And it's not going to come down when it's a mill pond out there. It's going to come down when it's bad and rough. Well, if your mast comes down, you've lost some shrouds, it's in the water, or broken off halfway or something. And it can be a battering ram punching holes in your boat. Big waves and everything's surging around. You could sink. It's way better to not have that mast than it is to have that mast punching holes in your boat. So usually it's recommended to get a big bolt cutter that can just cut right through the shrouds and have that available. And I did. I had a 3-foot bolt cutter. Carried it around for many years, many years. I've been out like 25 years. After about 20 years, I needed to use it once, and it failed me because it had rusted and it just didn't cut anymore. So it didn't do the job, and I had to cut in a different way. In fact, I ended up using an angle grinder. I'll get to that story in a minute. So if you had this, and before every cruise, you put cutoff wheel on it, have a whole bunch more cutoff wheels available because you're likely to break them. This is kind of an emergency thing. But shrouds are real small. You'd go through it like quick. And, have the battery charged. It works. Okay, put that in the place. And, you don't expect that to happen. But if it happened, you can get that mast off your boat right away. The other one that's probably more common, emergency, got to do it right now, is your anchor won't come up for whatever reason. But if you have all chain rode, it's not like you can cut that with a knife, right? So you're gonna have to cut through it. The big bolt cutters could do it, but they're not easy. I cut 3/8 inch high test chain with my 3-foot bolt cutters many times, and it's not this, it's put it down and jump on it. I mean, it's hard. This would go through it within a minute, easy. You saw what it did out there. So I like this better for cutting chain. Also, just general boat maintenance, you need to cut chain. Now for the time that I've had to do this. I was in Grenada. I had been there a long time. It was the end of hurricane season. I was going to go back up north again. I said, okay, let's pull up the anchor. So I started pulling up the anchor. Up it comes. Whoa, stuck on something. Bow of the boat goes right down. Wow. I tried to motor back and forth. I did all the things. Would not come loose. So I just said, well, let's see what the windlass can do. And I'd hit the windlass and it would come up about 6 inches. And then I decided I better stop and let it cool. So it took like an hour. And it kept coming up like 6 inches. Eventually it came up and I could see the anchor. And I'm going, what the hell's going on? It came up some more. There was a sunk boat down there. And I caught into its rigging. It was a smallish boat. Sailboat though. I probably stood the whole boat right up. But some of the stainless steel rigging was around my anchor. Now, I could have probably put a line on the trip part of my anchor and then let it down and tried to wiggle it loose. But I was tired and I needed to get underway. So it's not like I'm trying to protect the boat that's sunk. So I said, I'll grab my bolt cutters. And that's when they failed me. So I grabbed the angle grinder and an extension cord and turned on the inverter and zip, 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 I'm away. This would have been easier. So it's an emergency device, as well as just the best damn little useful tool in the world you never knew that you needed. The last thing I'd like to be able to report to you guys is how long the battery lasted. And I'd have to run the battery all the way down to know that. And then I still wouldn't know it because it's so many variables. How hard did I push? What grit was I using? So I can tell you that it had plenty of power right to the end. It didn't feel any different. I can tell you that that was enough, you know, for a little job. If I needed a lot more, I could always go get the plug-in one and use the ship's batteries. But what I've done is I put it on its charger. And I know when they first came, they should have been about half charged. And it took over an hour to charge this up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you how long it took to charge it back up to full. I'll put it right here. So you guys know, I have no clue right now. If that's like 20, 30 minutes, fine. You know, it didn't use a quarter of its ability. If that's like 2 hours, well, I probably almost depleted the battery. So, or like half depleted the battery, I guess it would be. So anyway, you'll know before I knew. I think this is a good piece of kit. It's relatively cheap. It looks well enough made to make it last long enough to be worth having. And at 50 bucks with a nice bag and all of this, yeah, get one. Link in the description. Bye from Clark on Temptress.